Empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men, shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives.
Welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. This show is based on the simple idea that every Black man is capable of creating inner peace, dynamic health, great relationships, and financial abundance. Therefore, we provide insights and strategies to educate, motivate, and inspire Black men to reach their full potential and create the life of their dreams. So if you're ready for some high-octane motivation and inspiration that supports and empowers you to live the life you were born to live, get ready to shatter the stereotypes so you can build a life that lights you up and positively impacts the world. So now, let's shatter the stereotypes with your host, Coach Michael Taylor.
Hello and welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. You see, there's never been a shortage of Black male role models. There's only been a lack of exposure of those role models. So the intention here is to showcase and highlight Black men who are doing amazing things in the world. And the other day, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were discussing whether or not women should be featured on this show. And his argument was that this was a show for Black men, and he didn't believe women should be on the show. And so I asked him if he understood the intention of the show, which is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. And I asked him directly if women could keep that intention. So he thought about it for a moment, and then he said, well, I guess you're right. Women can definitely empower and inspire Black men. Well, I'd already made up my mind that I was definitely okay to have women on the show. As a matter of fact, I've had women on the show before. And I believe now more than ever, we as Black men must open our minds and hearts and be willing to listen to and learn from some of the amazing women who are positively impacting the world in remarkable ways. And my guest tonight is one of those amazing women. Her name is Kriste, and she is a writer, media producer, speaker, and lover of the outdoors, which is one of the reasons I want to have her on the show. So without further ado, let's welcome Kriste to the show. Kriste, how you doing this evening?
I am doing well. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be in conversation with you tonight.
All righty. So before we jump into your work, we're going to start off with a few icebreaker questions. So first of all, tell us where you're from and just a little bit about growing up.
I am from I grew up in Virginia Beach. My family was military, and so they had traveled all over the world. My sister's first language was, in fact, Japanese. And so growing up in Virginia Beach felt like a little bit of an international experience because we had all these different things from all the various travels and had all different kinds of friends and experiences. I'd always been interested in eclectic things. And so I think that has served me well growing up. And tell me, what was the other question? Because I was about to go down.
Well, tell us a little bit about your family. You mentioned you have a sister. So
yes.
Other siblings?
Sister and two brothers.
Okay.
So I have a very, this topic of empowering men and empowering each other is very dear to my heart because I have had countless conversations with my brothers over the years about relationships and what people are looking for and how we do it and why are we, what is this sort of schism or disconnect between men and women, or people who identify, I'll say, as men or women, or anywhere on that spectrum. There is a fundamental, I think, issue in our communication and our connectedness, for sure.
Yeah, and we're gonna dive into that in a minute. So
All right.
hold that thought because we
Okay.
definitely want to go down that rabbit hole. So so name a woman who has inspired you to be who you are.
Hmm. You know, there are so many. There are so many women whose names you don't know, whose names I don't even know, but maybe I've seen their example that has informed my own way of being in the world. You know, one woman who comes to mind right now, top of mind, is Myrna Valerio. And she is an outdoor person, speaker, writer, and she is all over the trails, hiking and biking and educating people along the way. I love her story because she is what some people might call plus size, and just the visual representation of her being out there on the trails says, you know what, I can do it too. Says, I'm not trying to be like everybody else that you see in the media. I am solely here as myself. I don't pretend to do anything else but be me and share my story. And it is hugely inspiring to me. Yeah.
Nice. Now, name a man you look up to and admire.
Again, many men whose names you don't know. Um, you know, we were talking for a moment about Tony Porter, who is the founder of A Call to Men. And he comes to mind just because we were just talking about him a moment ago before we went live. And I had the great fortune of being in conversation with him. And I really admire Tony, you know, for some of those same reasons, because he shows up in the space as himself. He is not attempting to be anyone but himself. A Black man who is committed to inspiring men to come out from what he has lovingly dubbed the, the man box. And he is really inspiring to me because he encourages open, vulnerable conversation and communication among men, you know, without trying to invite anybody else in to solve or fix or heal. You know, he's like, it is men's responsibility to take care of their own issues. Because I asked him in our conversation, well, Tony, what can we do as women to help men in their own pursuit of or journey of wholeness and health, emotional, psychological, spiritual, and of course physical health and well-being. And he says, you know, the way that Black women, the way that you love on us is deep, and it is long and ongoing. It is abiding, and I can't say that there's anything else that you need to do. This is not your burden. Because I said, you know, the instinct for women, a lot of women, I will say, is to go in and fix and heal and support and encourage and just love the hell out of you, you know. And he says, you know, it's not for you to do. And so much of what he shared in that moment was lasting, you know, for me, was inspiring. I kept turning it over and over in my head. And
Yeah, absolutely
yeah,
love Tony Porter.
yeah, he's
He and I
wonderful.
are definitely coming from the same cloth about empowering men to take full responsibility for who we are.
Yeah.
And he's powerful in his presentation. Love the guy a bunch.
Hmm.
Now, if I gave you a magic wand, and with this magic wand, you could create anything your heart desires, what would Kriste Peoples be doing 10 years from now?
You know, um, I I find this question really interesting because I feel like I would be going more deeply into things that I already do. I would be spending more time in nature. I would be writing more. I would be uh, deeper in conversation with spiritual teachers and people who inspire me. I would be well soon when I'm assuming the world will be opened up again for travel. I would be traveling more and deepening deepening my relationships and really looking at ways to collaborate and connect and expand more into all the things that I already love and am involved with. So that's an easy question. Yeah.
Going deep,
Mhm.
going deep.
Going deep.
There you go. Now, there are some people who are extremely pessimistic about the future, while there are others, like myself, who are extremely optimistic. So where do you fall on that spectrum between optimism and pessimism for the future in general? Where do you fall?
Um, I fall in line with pulling my attention from the future into the present and also calling it up from the past into the moment. Because I think, speaking of going deep, in many ways, there is no future, right? If we are fully focused in the moment, then it is only one extended now, right? And and to the extent that we can bring our fullness, our full selves to the moment, the future takes care of itself. And so, toward that end, I would say I am an optimist, right? Because if I am grounded in the present moment, then that means I'm not attached to the past and I am not being reactive to those old stories and to those old ideas that I had about what happened back then. Instead, I am doing my work to be in the moment to help um, bring my full awareness, right? So that I can make the most informed decisions moment to moment, which will lead to, a positive outcome, which is the intention.
Right. The power of now.
Now,
Right now. Now, with
yes.
that being said, I'd now like you to introduce Kriste Peoples, the professional. So tell the audience about what you do.
Well, I think in so the crux or the central hub around which everything else goes, right? It involves Kriste Peoples as a communicator, a collaborator, a motivator, and some parts I'd say uh, teacher and student, right? Because in one in one facet of my life, I am a media producer. And so I work with authors and teachers and various trainers to help them create programming um, that is instructive to other folks or transformational, that sort of thing. And so I am that person who works behind the scene to pull the best from them so that we can then create a product or program or experience that is transformative for other people. I am also a women's trail running coach, which means I work behind the scenes, leading from behind to inspire women to go further and stronger than maybe they thought they could. And so I'm introducing people to a new way of experiencing nature. I'm also an outdoor guide, and so I do the same thing there, bringing people together and really sharing a new experience that may transform some previous idea that they had. I do public speaking as well, and so I'm also often talking about our stories and the importance of our stories, the ways that we identify ourselves, or the way that we think about certain things. And so I'm working to demystify maybe a process or a concept or an idea. So and I'm a writer. And so, all of that says I bring this central theme of my life to bear in whatever professional setting I find myself
Got it. Now,
in.
it's pretty apparent to me that you've actually spent a lot of time in deep contemplation and self-introspection. And I've come to know that there are only two things that really cause a person to begin that inner journey. One is pain, and the other is what I call divine discontent, which is just that feeling of something's just off. So what triggered you to begin your inner journey of transformation? Was it pain or was it divine discontent?
Mm, I think it was pain primarily, and some divine discontent. So a little bit of both. I would say that the pain, I think pain often stems from or is attributed to unmet need, right? So maybe not, experiencing in the culture a certain kind of rejection or limitation, or having or feeling hog-tied by the world. Nobody sees me, nobody sees my value. There are all these reasons why I'm not going to get ahead because the culture says, and all that kind of stuff, right? So and so I've been very curious about that kind of uh, spending some time like rebelling against it, or feeling like I'm like pushing up against the wall that was shifting all the time. Well, okay, I can't do that, then I'm going to go over here. I can't do that, then wait, where can I go? And so I think answering those questions, well, and also let me speak to the divine discontent. I felt that there was in some of the supposed teachings on morality or spirituality or religion, seeing leaders and people who were guides in this area, seeing them having an experience of hypocrisy or talking out of one side of the mouth, or not walking the talk, that also made me feel like, well, wait, what is true? I don't want to be involved in any kind of experience that says God is going to smite me because because I am here and I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough. So God is going to be jealous and vengeful and rageful and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, I don't want to be in that club because it doesn't inspire the best in me, that I always got to be going around dragging around on my knees, just feeling lucky and grateful for whatever little crumb of existence I have, and so I feel like the pursuit of spirituality is, or should be, liberating, or the goal or the object of the pursuit is liberation from suffering, liberation from self-limiting beliefs, liberation from the cultural projections that have been placed on us, particularly as Black folks, especially particularly as Black women. Whatever we can do to aid in our own freeing is what I'm about. And again, demystifying that process as well. Yeah.
Now, you talked about Shonda Rhimes' book, My Year of Yes, and how it impacted your life. Talk a little bit about what you learned from her book.
Tell me can you give me some context for when I said that?
Yeah, you were being interviewed actually. And
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's right.
yeah, you were talking about you decided that you wanted to say
Mhm.
yes to some things that you hadn't said yes to before.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so the thing about like wanting to change one's life, because self-help, personal development, growth, spirituality, healing, all this stuff um has a thread running through it of uh change your life, be different, be better, right? And the shine your light. I hear a lot of that. Let's put particularly in the women's empowerment circles. Shine your light. Don't go give your voice, do all this stuff. But people, I think a point that gets missed is that doing that can be rough. It can be hard. It can be quite challenging because you shine your light. You might be out there standing alone, throwing shadows over other people's stuff, and they don't want to be drawn out into the light. And so they might try to shut you down, you know? And so my feeling around saying yes was in response to a desire or an unmet need in myself to kind of change the game or flip the script a little bit, because as Einstein said, or is credited with having said, doing the same thing over and over again is insanity, is the definition of insanity. And so you want a different outcome, you got to put forward some different inputs, and so for me, that meant saying yes to opportunities, yes to requests to speak, yes to different projects, yes to new adventures. That's what that was. And then I spent quite some time doing that, probably actually a year. And then it was going through that process where I realized, oh, okay, now I don't have to say yes to everything. I can soften, I can ease up on that because I understand what the orientation toward the world feels like when I show up that way. And I got a good sense of that. I can be more discerning in what I take on and what I pursue as a result. So I encourage everybody to do it, especially if you want to experience like new dimensions of yourself, new expressions of who you might be, being that person that you have dreamed of being, be the change that you want to see in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as I was listening to your interview, I was inspired with your take on being willing to embrace your fears, saying yes to life, embracing your fears, moving through those fears. And so, because this show is really about empowering Black men to say yes to life. That's the whole intention, because I want Black men to understand that it is absolutely possible for us to be, to do, to have anything we set our minds to. And it's difficult to embrace this idea when you're so inundated with all the negativity, pessimism surrounding us. And so I'm a firm believer in a person's being willing to first and foremost say yes to their own life, to make a choice, to choose, because I'm a huge fan of the movie The Matrix. And have you ever seen the movie?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
The red pill, blue pill thing is so, so powerful because it's all about choice. It's all about us choosing to say yes to life. And when we surround ourselves with people that are willing to embrace the fear, the uncertainty, and all of that, it opens the door for us to say, well, dang, if he can do it, I can do it too. So this whole show is about simply for Black men to say yes, because we can do, be, and have anything we set our mind to. I'm a living example of that. So that's why I started this movement, Shatter the Stereotypes movement, to blow up the stereotypes about what we cannot do. Now, you have a quote on your website that I absolutely love. It says, if you do not answer the noise and urgency of your gifts, they will turn on you or drag you down with their immense sadness at being abandoned. I love that. I, I love that. So what's your meaning behind it? What's your thoughts around that quote? Then I'll share mine.
You know, so I don't want to, I also don't want to lose the thread uh, of Black men saying yes either, because
Okay.
I have a few thoughts on that.
Okay.
So my feeling is that a lot of the pain that we experience, um, culturally, socially, personally, all the pain, if it is unresolved, then it can get stuck in us, right? And turn on us. And that whole thing, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So if we don't access our ability to heal, that innate to heal, which is an innate mechanism in us, if we don't really attune to that, then we can be potentially doing ourselves a lot of harm in the process, right? And so that means when we have been, you know, basically traumatized by the culture, by internalized racism, by violence that is masking our fear and our pain, we stay in this repetitive cycle of suffering, right? And that also casts a cloud over our innate gifts and talents and abilities. And so the things that we really wanted to do and be in the world, we can't even access those desires or those whispers because of so many layers of unresolved trauma and fear and pain. And when that's the lens that we're operating from, that's often what we see out in the world, right? So we see people reflecting back to us, well, no, you can't do that. You can't go there. You're acting white. You're trying to be too good. You talk like a white person. You're not down. You don't have any cred or what, you know, whatever. All the things. You're too light. You're too dark. You're too big. You're too, you know, you're not enough this or not enough that, or you're too much this or too much that, right? And so we keep hearing all these messages. And then again, that cycle is validated. Like, well, I knew I shouldn't have stuck my neck out because they didn't want me in there anyway. Or because all those white people or whatever. That's what they do. That's a white thing. That's a whole nother conversation, right? So all that to say, we are inundated. I mean, I don't have to tell you, I don't have to tell your viewers. We understand this viscerally, right? Generationally, culturally, we know that we have been, you know, put upon and marginalized and discounted, counted out since we've been here. And so the process of saying yes, it isn't so much about the big epic yeses of, I'm gonna go get that $1 million check. I'm gonna be some kind of mogul or some kind of whatever, the top person at, you know, this or that pursuit. It's more about saying yes to the whisper thin threads of inspiration, right? So I'm sitting here in all my pain and frustration. My relationship ain't working. My job ain't working out. I am not satisfied and I'm angry. And yet I always wanted to be a chef. That's not going to work. But then I see a little ad on social media somewhere that says I can do a free Zoom class, a free Zoom cooking class for people who are out of work and in quarantine or whatever. And so let me just click on that. That's a yes, right? This is not the mogul yes. It's not, I'm just waiting for my big ship to come in. This is that one little yes. Okay, I'm gonna block out this hour to do this cooking class. I'm gonna go get the groceries and I'm gonna do this thing. I don't really have all the money for cordon bleu school or whatever, but I can do this free class and buy these few groceries. And then something happens in, maybe I meet somebody who knows somebody who's looking for some support for a catering job. So I go do that. Somebody has another class opening, and and saying yes, yes, yes. And then that starts to build its own repetitive cycle of yes, right? And so we start to see more openings in our lives where, oh my gosh, this door is now suddenly open. Oh my goodness, this cousin I haven't heard from in a while suddenly wants to hire me for their wedding or whatever. So this is like, and this is not like magical woo woo sitting on a cloud kind of stuff. This is intentionally giving yourself permission to pursue what's interesting, right? We don't have to know what's going to happen down the road after we take that class. We don't have to know, whether this is going to work out and become a new career. The thing is that it's speaking to some part of you that wants to draw near to it.
Yeah. And so,
important.
Yeah. And so piggybacking on that, because I think you touched on something that I really strive to do with this show. And you used the word trauma. And as Black men, a lot of us are afraid to confront the impact that trauma has on us. And I mean, all sorts of trauma, family trauma, as you mentioned, cultural trauma. I mean, there's so much trauma, which that pain, that suppressed and repressed pain will keep you from saying yes. If you aren't willing to confront and deal with and address and heal that trauma, it's difficult, if not impossible, to say yes to life.
Mm-hmm.
And so having someone courageous enough to start talking about some of these issues is why I do the show. Because I, as someone who had to overcome possibly the most traumatic childhood a child could have, and having to heal through that and grow through that and learn through that. And it was extremely painful and difficult, and yet it's doable because I did it. Now, I believe in the perfect universe. I believe the universe is absolutely perfect by design. And we have to be willing to acknowledge that if we heal from our trauma, we all have these innate gifts already in us. And by healing that trauma, those gifts come to the surface. And all of a sudden you go, oh yeah, I didn't know I could do that. As an example, I've always chased money. That was my thing. And so at the age of 23, I was living the American dream. You know, I had the house, the wife, the 2.5 kids and all of that. And so I was successful. And within a 6-year time frame, my American dream turned into the American nightmares. I went through a divorce, a bankruptcy, a foreclosure, a depression. I was homeless for 2 years living out of a car. And then I received a miracle. I was sitting up late one night because I was too depressed to sleep. And I was sitting at the edge of my bed, looking across the room at my bookshelf, when I happened to notice that every book on my bookshelf had something to do with getting rich or making money. And as I looked at those books, this question just popped in my head. And it was almost like this voiceless voice, which I now know was my higher self, but it said this: Michael, what if you took all the energy and effort you've used in trying to get rich and simply figure out how to be happy? That simple question literally saved and changed my life in an instant. It was like a light bulb went off in my head, and all of a sudden, I had this amazing clarity. And my depression just lifted, and all of a sudden, I just knew that somehow I was going to be able to rebuild my life, and it was going to be extraordinary. So I stopped reading books on getting rich and making money. And I started reading books on psychology and philosophy and spirituality and metaphysics. And I went on this amazing journey to self. And in doing so, and moving through the trauma, which included therapy and workshops and God knows how many audio programs. And I mean, it's been an amazing journey. But that simple question pointed me to what I'll call my authentic self. It helped me connect to who I am as a human being. And in doing so, I discovered my gifts. For example, I never dreamed of being a writer. I didn't start writing until I was in my late 30s. I never dreamed of being a speaker. I realized as part of this process, it's a gift that I have. I love public speaking. It's in me. It's just a part of who I am. So I say all that to say that saying yes to life means sometimes we'll be a little uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
But we have to be willing to go through that discomfort to get to who we really are. So, I love that quote, because what I recognize is that when I was living that quote unquote American dream, there was a part of me, which I'll call divine discontent, that part of me that knew something just wasn't right. I knew that I wasn't living my full life. I just intuitively knew something was wrong. And it was like the universe said, look, I'm sorry, I got to take drastic measures. I need to do some stuff to get your attention. And that's what my divorce, bankruptcy, and everything was. It was just the universe's way of saying, you're not doing what you were put on the planet to do. So let's change direction. And that's what started me on my journey. So with all that said, let's jump back into Miss Kriste. So Neil Donald Walsh says that our true purpose in life is to become the grandest version of the greatest vision we hold for ourselves as human beings. So, do you have a grand version of yourself that you want to become, or do you feel that you're already there?
I feel like it's an ongoing process, to, as I mentioned before, bringing my full self to the extent that I'm able to the moment is the very best I can do, right? Because that puts me at a point of power and choice, right? If I am running on my own energy, if I am able to show up and be clear-headed, compassionate, and aware, then that's the best I can do in any moment, right? So that means I'm letting go of the past, also not trying to grasp on to the future, and being kind to myself, because like you said, life is hard and it's difficult to show up without carrying our pain through the door and dragging our issues around with us everywhere we go. So I consider it a huge win to be able to stand in a place and not apologize, not shrink, and not have to prove anything, And so yeah, all right, make that is quite possibly the biggest, grandest version of myself, because I'm not trying to add anything to who I am. I'm not trying to take anything away. I am showing up in the fullness of me, So yeah, I guess that's my vision,
Nice.
to keep doing that and to grow in that.
Yes. Constant and never-ending improvement, going deeper and deeper and deeper, because my experience says there's no place to get. It's just an amazing journey that we're constantly on. And the only question I generally ask myself is, how can I be better? I live in that question. How can I become a better husband? How can I be a better father? How can I be a better writer? I live in that question of wanting to be better. But I can say also that I just love myself, so I'm cool.
That's huge.
Now, with that being said, there's this stereotype that Black people don't love the hanging out in outdoors, don't like camping, and it's amazing how this stereotype has been perpetuated for a very long time. And I know that you love absolutely love the outdoors. So
Mhm.
where did that love for the outdoors come from?
I think from just being one of those kids running outside, ripping and running and yelling with my friends in my on my block in my neighborhood. And there's something that I've always enjoyed about just running free, you know. And my mother and my grandmother had a great love of plants, grew some of their own food and all that. So there were, and also had a bunch of house plants around. And so that was just a real constant presence for me. And I'm in Colorado now. And so it was just a sort of natural extension of who I already was. Now, as to the stereotypes, there's they're not without some real history behind them, because for a long time Black and brown people and the indigenous people have been traumatized in nature, have been brutalized, murdered, disappeared, forced to work for no pay, and
Not allowed access.
not and not allowed access.
Yeah.
I mean, through legal action, through law enforcement of certain policies, and also through just brutality, greed, and malice. And so, when the opportunity opened up for a large swath of Black folks to get off of the land and to go into offices, people rushed to it because there was better opportunity there. And so over the years, I mean, with segregation and violence and all that stuff, it drove, there was a system in place to drive people of color off of the land. I mean, now for our Latinx folks, who are by and large the lion's share of people working in the fields now, um, it has not been a fun place. Media these days shows that one white guy shushing up and down the mountain and like rock climbing and doing all the things. And so we as people of color don't always see ourselves represented in the outdoors. And so for me, I go out, I'm out there running and hiking and climbing mountains and running up the summits and all that kind of stuff. And so early on, some of my folks, my family were like, what are you doing out there chasing the bears? Black people don't do that. But the thing is, well, can't nobody say I'm not Black, you know? And the thing is, visibility matters, education matters. We have been disconnected from the land. And so it's easy for those stories and stereotypes to fall into that gap because we haven't been attending to our love of nature or why we are disconnected and all that. So visibility is very important. So you see me out there, you see other people who look like me out there, you can no longer say Black folks don't do it. You can no longer say there's not a healing or some sort of significant benefit from being in the outdoors, because we going out there and we're coming back, bringing more people with us and saying, hey, there is a great opportunity to reconnect to the land, which is a deeper connection to ourselves and something that was severed centuries ago. That's a huge healing. Also, to be there with each other, to bear witness to each other, that's a huge healing. And also to be able to do something new that you've been curious about, So again, that's shattering stereotypes just by being visible.
Now, on your website, it says, nature isn't just good for us, she is us. Plus, it's where healing and discovery can happen, which is why I love to get out with the good people every chance I get. So, what do you mean, she is us?
Well, Mother Nature is she. Mother is she.
Okay.
Mother is the divine feminine, right? And also, we tend to associate nurturing, healing, grounding, caretaking with the feminine, right? As opposed to pursuit, conquering, hard driving, hard charging with the masculine, right? So I call nature she, mother nature. And so the thing is that, we're all made up of energy. We are made up of the elements too. You break us down, we are the same minerals that you find on the mountain. We are water, we are air, we are mineral, we are stardust. And so, really being out in nature is a huge, again, reconnection or a sort of recharging for us. And so, because it's reconnecting to ourselves, because we are made up of this stuff, right? And so, and then add to that, again, this is not magical woo woo, she's crazy stuff. This is bona fide scientific research. It is backed by lots of studies that show that being in nature and spending time in natural surroundings can lower our cortisol, which is the stress hormone. It can help to stabilize our nervous system, right? So, in so many ways, being Black folks, in America or anywhere, sometimes, we are on high alert, energetically or neurologically in our systems. So we're like frying out. That's why we got high blood pressure and hypertension and all these other issues. But you go out into nature and spend some time, all of that stuff starts to calm down and recalibrate to a natural state of being. And studies also tell us that when we come back from nature, we have those healing benefits that stay with us for a period of time, a number of hours after we've been out there. And so some doctors these days are now prescribing nature to their patients to help with some of these illnesses and chronic conditions that can't be treated as well by medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've had an affinity for nature since I was about 8. As I mentioned, I had a very traumatic childhood, but the saving grace for me was we had this wooded area across from where we lived. And I spent a lot of time alone in nature. And there's almost a safety I feel when I'm in nature.
Yes.
It embraces me. It holds me. It's there for me. And every time I've been meditating for some 30 years or so. So I can get out and get into this connectedness, if you will, with nature that I can't experience anywhere else. I feel, as you mentioned, she is us. I feel that when I'm in nature. It's like I'm a part of all of it. So it's something that I really, really, really love. So, wow, time flies when we're having fun. So a couple of points I want to make real quickly, though. So you do these workshops, these retreats for women. Tell us a little bit about those retreats. What's the intention behind the retreats?
Well, generally it's an experience of coming together to, again, bear witness to each other, because a lot of times just the act of being together in a space is validating, particularly for people of color, for Black folks who don't see themselves in a positive, just chill setting that much. If we're all the only one in the office, if we live in a place where there aren't many of us, if we feel like there aren't so many like-minded Black and brown folks around us, coming into a space to be together that's the first thing. And then also to have access to healing practices, meditation, being outside, writing, group work, and also, speaking and having teachers and instructors there who are kind of helping to shape the experience of transformation from, again, that unmet need, that what did you call it, the divine dissent, the
Discon-
divine discontent, and and having a place to really unravel a lot of that, the knots of our tension and of our stress, and to come away with tools and resources to help us tap into that inherent wisdom and that yes loop that I was talking about before. So that's what the retreats are generally centered around, for sure.
Now, what percentage of your participants are women of color or Black women?
Generally all of them, because I am affiliated with Black Women's Alliance. I actually started that group a few years ago as a means to do exactly that, bring Black women together who were looking for similar shared experience of learning from each other, being connected to each other. So the spirit of the alliance is bringing folks together who are like-minded and who are also seeking the benefit of whatever it is that we're gathering around, right? So Black women, teachers, speakers, healers, we gather together to just support and love on each other. Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Mhm.
Now, I remember back in the 80s when Oprah was really popular. And there were several instances in which, I guess in a lot of ways, I was defending Oprah, talking to a lot of my male friends because their wives would listen to Oprah and then come home and throw that in their husband's or their boyfriend's face. And so men had this negative reaction because Oprah was changing their women, right?
Mm.
So I'm curious, when these women go through your retreats and workshops, what benefits do men get out of that, or do they?
Hmm.
Because
Well,
men are threatened. Men are threatened, especially if a man hasn't done his work.
mm-hmm.
They are threatened when the woman transforms, because there's a lot of unspoken insecurity that we as men feel we don't necessarily talk about. But when
Mm-hmm.
women become empowered, it can be intimidating. So I'm just curious. You go to these retreats and these women are going, I'm in my power. So how does that reflect back to the men in your experience? What do you think?
Um, this is interesting because there are several questions or issues there, right? So is, to what extent is that male partner invested in the woman's growth? And where is the investment? Where is the benefit in being in a partnership where you're not empowered, right? So what does that mean? That either one of you would need to stay disempowered in order to have a healthy relationship, like living half lives in order to stay together. If somebody comes back feeling fulfilled, becomes a threat. I think rather than looking at it as a threat, I think there are opportunities, right? Opportunities for change. And change is threatening. And so I think it's important to have open communication around, hey, what do we want to do in terms of helping each other to grow? Where is my investment in that? What does that look like? And again, change is hard, right? And so that's what I said about shining your light, right? You come home fully lit up, lit from within. That partner might not be ready for it. That partner might not feel safe in changing because we have historically, we have lots of experience of abandonment and rejection. And so we have this partner coming back all shiny and new, and they got all the answers. Well, what does that mean? This person is now leaving me, or am I not good enough? Or they told me this relationship wasn't going to last. Oh my God, what's next? Right? So there has to be some real commitment to communicating what's up. Again, moment to moment, right? Everything is a process. Everything is, if we view everything as a choice, I am making the choice to feel intimidated. I am making the choice to come forward and say, hey, what can we do to work together? Now, the other piece is, if somebody's coming back because they've like read a book or they've had an experience and suddenly want to convert you, that's something else, but again, it all comes back to what is the intention? How can we, and safety is important too. We need to feel safe in our relationships, partner and otherwise, to be able to come forward and tell the truth to each other, because nobody is being served if one person comes home feeling good and the other one is like, no, I got to cut you down to size because you're feeling good does not feel good to me. There is something that is not healthy and quite possibly toxic there.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity to say, hey, what can we do together? This is how I'm feeling. Here's how I want to contribute to our growth. Here's what I'm doing in service to my own. Like we got to change the conversation.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've done with clients, coaching clients, especially women, is when they come in, one of the first things that I do is I said, so what is your intention? As you just mentioned, what is your intention for this coaching? What do you want to get out of this? And a lot of times they'll say, well, I want my husband to do this. I want my, so they're pointing fingers at that person. I say, and I would just come back to it and say, so what are you going to get out of this? What's your intention? What do you want to get out of this? And how can you take what you're learning about yourself so that it improves your relationship? And a lot of times you have men who are really resistant to change, as you mentioned. And so there's ways to coach someone, but most importantly, I think you really nailed it when you said, so why would you want to be in a toxic environment anyway? So it comes back to choice. So are you going to choose to stay with this person who knows they don't want to change? Or you're going to love yourself enough to maybe make a different choice? And again, there's no easy answers here, no right or wrong, but it's really about transformation and the commitment to transformation. And I think as Black people, we have to invest in our inner transformation, whatever form that might take. And I'm really glad to see that you're doing what you're doing with women. I'm curious though, what part of Colorado do you live in?
I'm in Denver.
Denver, okay. What's the Black population in Denver?
Oh, I'm not sure the percentage. We're not 5%.
Yeah, I know it's not a bunch of Black people.
No, but the communities are small and they are tight, and we are definitely interacting and aware of each other. So it's not that we are walking around blind in search of Black people. We got an eye on where everybody is and what we're doing. So that's actually a gift of being in a.
Well, with that being said, so how can people find out more about the work that you're doing with women? How can they find you?
I am on my website, kristepeoples.com. Also, we have
spell your name because it's kind of tricky.
KristePeoples.com.
Got it.
Also, Black Women's Alliance on Facebook. Our website is in progress as we speak. But Black Women's Alliance on Facebook also lists a lot of the events that we do and what we're up to these days, a lot of which is virtual now.
Nice. Well, we probably got to a third of the conversation that I wanted to have with you. We're going to have a part 2.
Okay.
I definitely want to go a little deeper with the whole relationship piece and how that relates to us, especially as Black men, to have that conversation. So, but as we wind down now, I want to give you an opportunity to just share your final thoughts and ideas about what we discussed or whatever is on your heart to share with the audience right now.
You know, the biggest thing, and thank you for that, by the way, the biggest thing I think is to recognize that change is hard, and doing new things, giving ourselves permission is key if we want to have new experiences. And I also want to underscore that, you know, we do not have to be perfect in order to reach for a new experience. Just one tiny yes. I would like to invite anybody who's watching this just to say a tiny little yes to something that you've been wanting to do without having any agenda other than to give yourself permission to live like you intend to.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Well, again, I just want to say thank you for hanging out with us for an hour, sharing your wisdom. You and I could talk for hours. we could talk for hours, but
I think we could.
But I'm just so glad that our paths have crossed, and I know everything happens for a reason, and I'm glad we've been brought together to share a common goal of helping transform the world in our own special, unique ways by sharing our gifts. And so I want to thank you for sharing your gifts with the world and who you are.
Oh, thank you for the same. Thank you for the same. It has really been a pleasure and an honor to share with you. I hope some of this has been a benefit to anybody who is tuning in. It sure has been food for my soul. So thank you so much.
And now more than ever, we have to heal Black male-female relationships. We got, well, not just Black male-female, all relationships. We have to heal relationships. That's so critical for us. So let's set a new intention that's what we're going to focus on. So this has been another episode of Shatter the Stereotypes, and I want to leave you a simple thought. Say yes to life. Say yes to life. We'll see you next episode. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to Shatter the Stereotypes with your host, Coach Michael Taylor. Always remember, you have everything you need inside of you to create an extraordinary life. So begin by changing your mindset and attitude, and you can make your dreams come true. We'll see you next episode. Take care.
Empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Empower Black men. Shatter the stereotypes.